In the hushed depths of history, where ancient stones still whisper forgotten tales, there stands a drama. It is etched not in granite but in the very fabric of human consciousness, a masterpiece that has captivated, confounded, and challenged us for over 4 centuries. This is the story of a prince, a kingdom, and the agonizing labyrinth of a soul confronted by an impossible command. This is William Shakespeare's Hamlet, a tragedy so profoundly woven into our cultural tapestry that its echoes resonate in every corner of our modern world. It asks us not merely to observe, but to reflect deeply on the universal human condition. The vibrant theatrical scene of late 16th century London, a crucible of creativity and entertainment, fostered a voracious public appetite for dramatic storytelling. This was especially true for the thrilling narratives of revenge tragedies. This fervent demand for plays, often steeped in sensational plots of murder and retribution, served as the fundamental motivation for playwrights, including the young William Shakespeare, to explore and adapt popular literary themes of the era. The clamor of the audience, seeking both moral instruction and visceral excitement, propelled the genre forward, influencing the creation of future theatrical works. In this fertile artistic landscape, the conventions of the revenge tragedy were firmly established. Notably, Thomas Kyd's seminal work, The Spanish Tragedy, premiered in the late 1580s. This play, with its innovative use of a vengeful ghost, a protagonist driven to feign madness, and a bloody denouement, laid the crucial academic and theatrical foundation for the genre. It demonstrated effective narrative techniques for portraying justice and retribution. Kyd's play thus became a benchmark, shaping audience expectations and providing a structural blueprint for subsequent dramatists. From this flourishing tradition, an earlier, now-lost dramatic work, commonly referred to by scholars as the Ur-Hamlet or original Hamlet, emerged. It was possibly penned by Thomas Kyd himself around 1589. This foundational play, preceding Shakespeare's version by about a decade, developed a compelling narrative of a Danish prince's quest for vengeance against his uncle. This uncle had murdered his father and usurped the throne, thereby solidifying the core plot elements that would define the Hamlet story. The Ur-Hamlet thus served as a direct narrative precursor, providing Shakespeare with an already popular and proven theatrical premise to build upon. The existence and popularity of this Ur-Hamlet directly influenced Shakespeare's creative process. It offered him a pre-existing dramatic framework, rather than compelling him to invent an entirely new story from scratch. This provided Shakespeare with a recognized narrative, allowing him to focus his genius on character development, thematic depth, and poetic language. He transformed a conventional revenge plot into something far more profound and enduring. His engagement with the established narrative ultimately facilitated a deeper exploration of human psychology, rather than a mere retelling of events. The ultimate impact of Shakespeare's engagement with the Ur-Hamlet was nothing short of revolutionary. He elevated the revenge tragedy from a genre of sensationalism into a profound literary and philosophical inquiry. By building upon an existing, successful plot, he was able to infuse it with unparalleled psychological complexity, intricate moral dilemmas, and poetic grandeur. He transcended the genre's previous limitations and established Hamlet as a timeless exploration of the human condition. This transformation set a new, enduring standard for dramatic literature, influencing countless authors and playwrights across centuries. Beyond the literary inspirations, William Shakespeare's personal life profoundly impacted the melancholic and grief-stricken tone that permeates Hamlet. This was most notably through the tragic death of his only son, Hamnet, on August 11, 1596, at the tender age of 11. This devastating loss served as a deeply personal cause for the profound sorrow and preoccupation with death that would later become central to his most celebrated tragedy. It infused the play with a raw, authentic emotional undercurrent that transcends mere literary convention. The pain of a father losing his child undoubtedly shaped the playwright's understanding of grief, a sentiment that would resonate deeply within his work. In the late 1590s, the Shakespeare family, under William's growing prominence, actively sought a grant of a coat of arms. This process was initially begun by his father, John Shakespeare, a quarter of a century earlier, but stalled due to financial and social difficulties in the 1570s. This pursuit of heraldic recognition, a symbol of upward social mobility and gentry status, provided a specific social and aspirational context for the family's desire for honor and legitimacy. It reflected William's increasing success and the family's collective ambition to solidify their place in society. The approval of the Shakespeare family's coat of arms, bearing the motto non sans droit, meaning not without right, in the late 1590s marked a significant milestone. It confirmed their elevation from commoners to respected gentry, largely due to William's burgeoning career as London's foremost playwright. This official recognition directly contributed to the family's enhanced social standing and public image. It legitimized their wealth and influence, and allowed them to participate more fully in the aristocratic circles of Elizabethan society. This newfound gentry status, while affirming William's success, also drew criticism and mockery from certain theatrical circles. This is evidenced by Ben Jonson's satirical play, Every Man Out of His Humor, from 1599, where a character's family motto is sarcastically changed to not without mustard. Such jabs like Jonson's were an indirect consequence of Shakespeare's rapid ascent, reflecting the envy and social tensions that arose when a commoner achieved such prominence. This forced Shakespeare to navigate not only artistic rivalries, but also the complex social politics of the Elizabethan era. The persistent impact of Shakespeare's personal grief over Hamnet's death is widely believed to have seeped into the very naming and emotional core of Hamlet, penned around 1599 to 1600. This transformed it into Shakespeare's longest and arguably finest play. The shared name, with its interchangeable spellings in that era, suggests a profound and deeply personal connection. It allowed the playwright to invert his own sorrow by portraying Prince Hamlet grieving the loss of his father, rather than a son. This emotional transposition imbued the play with an unparalleled depth of feeling, resonating with audiences then and now. The Elizabethan and Jacobean eras, spanning from the late 16th to the early 17th centuries, established a dynamic cultural context where theater was not merely entertainment but a powerful reflection and shaper of public discourse. This period, marked by the reigns of Queen Elizabeth I and King James I, saw a remarkable flourishing of dramatic arts. It created an environment where playwrights like Shakespeare could thrive, producing works that explored the complexities of human nature, politics, and morality to a highly engaged and diverse audience. The stage, therefore, became a mirror for society. During this vibrant period, London emerged as a bustling metropolis, transforming into the epicenter of England's burgeoning theatrical industry. This was characterized by the construction of purpose-built playhouses like the Globe. This rapid urbanization and economic growth provided the essential infrastructure and a large, diverse audience, ranging from groundlings to nobility. It directly enabled the flourishing of playwrights and acting companies. The city's energy fueled the creative output, making theater an accessible and popular form of public entertainment, drawing in crowds from all walks of life. The theatrical environment of Shakespeare's time was uniquely characterized by its direct and lively interaction between performers and a diverse audience. Plays were often staged in open-air amphitheaters like the Globe. This immersive setting, combined with minimal scenery, demanded highly skilled actors who could engage the crowd through powerful rhetoric, physical action, and direct address. This created a dynamic and fluid theatrical experience distinct from modern, more passive forms of spectatorship. The audience, often vocal and demonstrative, was an integral part of the performance itself. The prevailing genre of revenge tragedy in the late 16th and early 17th centuries, largely influenced by Roman playwright Seneca, provided a well-understood narrative template that directly shaped Shakespeare's approach to Hamlet. These plays, known for their themes of betrayal, murder, and retribution, often featured a protagonist driven by a familial imperative to avenge a wrong, a popular motif that resonated with Elizabethan audiences. This established dramatic tradition offered Shakespeare a conventional framework within which he could embed his deeper philosophical inquiries. The Lord Chamberlain's Men, Shakespeare's acting company, achieved considerable fame and success during the Elizabethan era. It became a prominent feature of London's entertainment landscape, with Shakespeare himself serving as a principal actor and shareholder. This collective of talented performers, including the renowned Richard Burbage who would play Hamlet, provided a stable and creative environment for Shakespeare's prolific output. It allowed his plays to be performed consistently to wide acclaim. The company's stability and artistic caliber were instrumental in the development and presentation of his works. Shakespeare's role as a principal actor within the Lord Chamberlain's Men, and later the King's Men, alongside his duties as a playwright, significantly influenced the practical construction and stageability of his plays. His first-hand experience of the stage, understanding the demands and capabilities of his fellow actors, allowed him to craft roles that were not only dramatically compelling, but also technically feasible for performance within the theatrical conventions of the time. This dual role ensured that his written words would effectively translate into powerful live performances, making his plays immensely popular and enduring. The creation of Hamlet occurred during a particularly prolific period for Shakespeare, roughly between 1599 and 1601. This followed the success of other notable works like Julius Caesar from 1599 and preceded later masterpieces such as Othello from 1603 and King Lear from 1606. This concentrated burst of creativity indicates a period of mature artistic development, where Shakespeare, having honed his craft, was capable of tackling complex themes with unprecedented depth and sophistication. This solidified his reputation as England's foremost dramatist. The popular appeal of Hamlet from its earliest performances is undeniable. Contemporary references indicate it became an instant hit, and Richard Burbage, portraying the titular prince, received much acclaim. This immediate public success underscored Shakespeare's profound ability to connect with the sensibilities of his era. He tapped into universal themes of grief, vengeance, and existential doubt that resonated deeply with Elizabethan and Jacobean audiences. The play's gripping narrative and emotionally charged performances ensured its lasting popularity. The historical context of political unrest and anxieties surrounding royal succession in England during the late Elizabethan and early Jacobean periods profoundly influenced the themes explored in Hamlet. Queen Elizabeth I's refusal to name a clear heir created widespread uncertainty, fostering a climate of intrigue and potential power struggles that Shakespeare subtly mirrored in the Danish court of Elsinore. This societal unease provided a resonant backdrop for the play's depiction of a kingdom in disarray, where legitimacy and loyalty are constantly questioned. The prevalence of spying and surveillance within the Elizabethan court and wider English society directly informed the atmosphere of suspicion and conspiracy that pervades Hamlet. In an era where political intrigue and potential Catholic plots were a constant concern, covert observation and the use of informers were common. This reality is reflected in Polonius's use of Reynaldo to spy on Laertes and his own eavesdropping on Hamlet. This social context of pervasive distrust amplified the play's themes of deception and hidden motives, making the characters' paranoia strikingly relatable to contemporary audiences. The cultural backdrop of changing religious beliefs, particularly the shift from Catholicism to Protestantism during the English Reformation, introduced a profound moral and spiritual complexity that deeply impacted characters like Hamlet. The lingering questions about purgatory, the nature of ghosts, and the moral implications of vengeance in a Christian context, all debated within society, directly contributed to Hamlet's internal conflict and philosophical agonizing. This period of spiritual transition challenged traditional certainties, leaving individuals like the fictional prince to grapple with ambiguous moral landscapes. The dramatic shift in political climate from Queen Elizabeth I's long and stable reign to the accession of King James I in 1603 marked a significant transition. It moved from a monarch who governed with considerable public affection to one whose authority was often challenged by Parliament. This changing environment, with its heightened awareness of political maneuvering and the fragility of power, deeply influenced Shakespeare's later tragedies, including Hamlet. It enriched their exploration of kingship, rebellion, and moral authority. The Elizabethan era's fascination with the concept of melancholy, understood as a complex psychological and physiological state often linked to intellectualism and contemplation, directly shaped the portrayal of Hamlet's character. This prevailing medical and philosophical theory, which attributed melancholy to an excess of black bile, provided a contextual lens through which audiences understood Hamlet's profound sadness, introspection, and philosophical brooding. His sickness was not merely a plot device, but a recognizable condition within the period's understanding of human temperament. The tragic drowning of a woman named Catherine Hamlet in December 1579, near Stratford-upon-Avon, offers a curious and compelling anecdotal link to the creation of Ophelia's iconic death scene in Hamlet. This local event, occurring when William Shakespeare was a young man and likely still living in his hometown, may have subtly seeped into his subconscious. It could have provided a real-world, albeit tragic, inspiration for one of the play's most poignant moments. The echoes of such a local tragedy could have, years later, informed his powerful depiction of Ophelia's demise. Shakespeare's educational background, particularly his attendance at the King's New School, the local grammar school in Stratford-upon-Avon, provided him with a rigorous grounding in Latin and Greek. This exposed him to classical authors such as Cicero, Virgil, and Seneca. This humanistic education, emphasizing rhetoric, logic, and ancient literature, directly equipped him with the intellectual tools and literary allusions necessary to craft complex narratives and sophisticated characters like Hamlet. It enabled him to engage with profound philosophical questions embedded in classical thought. This classical education, especially exposure to the Greek playwrights Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, and the Roman comic and tragic playwrights Plautus, Terence, and Seneca, profoundly influenced Shakespeare's dramatic sensibility and his approach to tragedy. He absorbed their structural devices, character archetypes, and thematic concerns, integrating them into his own unique dramatic style. This enriched his plays with layers of classical allusion and universal human struggles. The political climate of Denmark, as depicted in Hamlet, is one of profound instability and moral decay. This is a direct consequence of King Hamlet's sudden death and Claudius's hasty, incestuous marriage and usurpation of the throne. This underlying tension, marked by the threat of invasion from Norway under Fortinbras, creates a volatile atmosphere where suspicion, betrayal, and a deep sense of unease pervade the court of Elsinore. The kingdom itself is portrayed as rotten, mirroring the moral corruption at its heart. The strategic location of Elsinore Castle, or Kronborg Castle, at the narrowest point of the Øresund Strait between Denmark and Sweden, historically made it a vital military and economic stronghold. It controlled access to the Baltic Sea. This geographical context, while perhaps not explicitly detailed in the play, lends a layer of realism to the threat of Fortinbras's invasion. It underscores the political vulnerability and military significance of the Danish kingdom as a geopolitical prize. Renaissance humanism, a dominant intellectual movement of the 15th and 16th centuries, profoundly shaped the philosophical underpinnings of Hamlet. It emphasized human dignity, individualism, and the power of reason, moving away from medieval scholasticism. This intellectual current provided the conceptual framework for Hamlet's intense introspection, his moral questioning, and his struggle with the nature of human agency and purpose in a world seemingly devoid of divine order. The prince embodies this new era, grappling with profound questions of existence and morality. This humanistic emphasis on individual moral judgment, often at odds with traditional religious dogma or feudal codes of honor, created a profound ethical dilemma for the fictional Prince Hamlet. He finds himself caught between the ancient imperative of blood revenge and the emerging Renaissance ideals of rational thought and Christian morality, which question the righteousness of private vengeance. This internal conflict, a hallmark of the new intellectual age, propels his philosophical agonizing and indecisiveness. The popular medical theory of the four humors, inherited from ancient Greek medicine and prevalent during Shakespeare's time, provided a physiological and psychological framework for understanding human temperament. It directly influenced the characterization of figures like Hamlet and Ophelia. This theory, which attributed personality traits and emotional states to the balance of blood, phlegm, yellow bile and black bile, offered a scientific, albeit flawed, explanation for character predispositions such as Hamlet's melancholy or Ophelia's fragile emotional state. Hamlet, the fictional prince of Denmark, is profoundly shaped by this humoral theory. He presents as a classic melancholic, characterized by an excess of black bile which manifests as profound sadness, intellectual brooding, and an inclination towards introspection and philosophical contemplation. This inherent melancholic temperament serves as a physiological cause for his indecisiveness and his deep dive into existential questions, making his sickness not merely a dramatic device but a scientifically, for the era, plausible psychological condition. Ophelia, as a poignant counterpoint to Hamlet, also embodies aspects of the humoral theory. She is often interpreted as suffering from a melancholic disposition, exacerbated by the emotional trauma inflicted upon her. Her descent into madness and eventual death by drowning can be seen through the lens of a delicate balance of humors being completely overwhelmed by grief, rejection, and loss. This reflects the era's understanding of extreme emotional distress. Her fragile mental state is thus portrayed as a tragic consequence of external pressures on a naturally sensitive constitution. The fictional Prince Hamlet, the protagonist of Shakespeare's tragedy, embodies the agonizing struggle of a highly intelligent and sensitive soul thrust into a world of moral corruption and profound loss. Born to the late King Hamlet and Queen Gertrude, he is introduced as a university student, a man of thought and contemplation, whose life is irrevocably altered by his father's sudden death and his mother's hasty remarriage. His journey, marked by existential questions and a quest for truth, forms the emotional core of the play. King Claudius, Hamlet's uncle and now the King of Denmark, emerges as the primary antagonist. He is a cunning and ambitious figure driven by a relentless lust for power and pleasure. His usurpation of the throne, achieved through the cold-blooded murder of his brother, King Hamlet, and his subsequent marriage to Gertrude, reveals a character of profound moral depravity and calculated ruthlessness. Claudius represents the corrupting influence of unchecked ambition, transforming the royal court into a viper's nest of intrigue and deceit. Queen Gertrude, Hamlet's mother and the newlywed wife of Claudius, is a complex figure caught between her son's grief and her own desire for stability and companionship. Her hasty marriage, following so closely upon her first husband's death, deeply offends Hamlet and fuels his disillusionment with female fidelity and the moral order. Gertrude's actions, whether born of genuine affection for Claudius or a need for security, are central to Hamlet's psychological torment and his perception of familial betrayal. Ophelia, the daughter of Polonius and sister of Laertes, serves as Hamlet's love interest. She is a young woman of gentle nature and tragic vulnerability, whose fate is inextricably linked to Hamlet's madness and the machinations of the corrupt court. Her innocence and purity are gradually shattered by Hamlet's cruel rejection, her father's death, and her brother's departure. This ultimately leads to her descent into madness and a symbolic, mournful death. Ophelia embodies the collateral damage of the play's pervasive corruption. Polonius, the Lord Chamberlain of Denmark and father to Ophelia and Laertes, is portrayed as a verbose, meddling, and ultimately foolish elder statesman. His constant attempts to spy and manipulate situations contribute to the tragedy's unfolding. His well-intentioned but misguided advice and his eagerness to curry favor with Claudius inadvertently ensnare his children in the court's dangerous political games. Polonius represents the insidious nature of officialdom and the perils of excessive, self-serving counsel. Laertes, the son of Polonius and brother of Ophelia, stands as a foil to Hamlet. He embodies a starkly different approach to grief and vengeance. Unlike Hamlet's agonizing introspection, Laertes is characterized by impulsive action, passionate loyalty to his family, and a swift, unhesitating demand for retribution when confronted with his father's and sister's deaths. His straightforward, honor-driven pursuit of revenge highlights Hamlet's philosophical hesitations and sets up the tragic final confrontation. Horatio, Hamlet's loyal and trusted friend from the University of Wittenberg, acts as a moral compass and objective observer throughout the unfolding tragedy. His steadfast loyalty, intellectual integrity, and grounding in reason provide a crucial counterpoint to Hamlet's spiraling madness and the pervasive deceit of the court. Horatio serves as the audience's confidant, bearing witness to Hamlet's inner turmoil and ultimately being tasked with telling the prince's true story to the world. The sudden, horrifying appearance of King Hamlet's ghost on the battlements of Elsinore Castle acts as the primary catalyst for the entire tragic narrative. It reveals the shocking truth of his murder by Claudius to his stunned son. This supernatural intervention, shattering the fragile peace of the court, serves as the fundamental cause for Hamlet's subsequent existential crisis and his sworn oath of vengeance. It sets the complex machinery of revenge into motion. In the wake of this spectral revelation, the fictional Prince Hamlet, overwhelmed by the enormity of his father's command and the inherent moral complexities of exacting revenge, adopts a cunning strategy. He feigns madness to mask his true intentions and to observe the court's reactions. This calculated pretense, allowing him a dangerous freedom of speech and behavior, provides him with the necessary context to navigate the treacherous landscape of Elsinore, testing loyalties and subtly probing for evidence of Claudius's guilt. The renowned soliloquy "to be or not to be, that is the question," delivered by Hamlet in the third act, marks a pivotal moment of profound existential crisis. It transcends the immediate plot of revenge to delve into the universal human condition. This philosophical introspection, exploring the desirability of life versus the oblivion of death, provides the core narrative development of Hamlet's inner turmoil. It reveals a soul grappling with the fundamental meaning of existence, suffering, and the fear of the unknown. Driven by an insatiable need for concrete proof of Claudius's guilt, beyond the mere word of a ghost, Hamlet masterminds a cunning play within a play known as the mousetrap. This is designed to mirror the circumstances of his father's murder. This dramatic reenactment, presented before the court, serves as the climactic narrative development in Hamlet's quest for truth. It is designed to catch the conscience of the king through a carefully crafted artistic device. Claudius's horrified reaction to the play within a play provides the irrefutable evidence Hamlet desperately sought. The impulsive, tragic stabbing of Polonius, concealed behind an arras while spying on Hamlet's intense confrontation with his mother, marks a devastating turning point in the play's narrative. It cascades into a series of irreparable consequences. This accidental act of violence, born of Hamlet's fury and mistaken identity, ignites a fierce demand for retribution from Laertes and sets in motion Claudius's definitive plot to eliminate Hamlet. It irrevocably alters the course of the tragedy. Polonius's immediate demise, a direct result of his pervasive meddling and Hamlet's rash action, unleashes a torrent of grief and vengeful fury within his son, Laertes. This sets him on a direct path of retribution against Hamlet. This tragic event not only removes a key figure from the court, but also effectively eliminates a potential voice of reason, leaving Ophelia vulnerable and deepening the moral quagmire that engulfs Elsinore. The loss of a parent becomes a powerful engine for a new, personal vendetta. The cumulative weight of Hamlet's rejection, her father Polonius's brutal murder, and her brother Laertes' hurried departure for France, inexorably drives Ophelia into a heart-wrenching descent into madness. Stripped of all her anchors, love, family, and sanity, her delicate mind shatters under the unbearable strain. This manifests in poignant songs and scattered thoughts, a direct narrative consequence of the court's pervasive corruption and the tragic events swirling around her. Ophelia's symbolic death by drowning amidst a garland of wildflowers tragically concludes her narrative arc. It serves as both a consequence of the play's relentless cruelty and a powerful image of innocence overwhelmed by a corrupted world. Her demise, shrouded in ambiguity as to its exact nature, marks the ultimate tragic result of the pervasive deceit and violence within Elsinore. It leaves an indelible mark on the surviving characters, particularly Laertes. The swift return of Laertes from France, fueled by an uncontrollable fury over his father's death and sister's madness, provides Claudius with a perfect, unwitting instrument for his manipulative schemes against Hamlet. This raw, unbridled desire for vengeance, meticulously cultivated by the cunning king, creates a potent alliance that will ultimately lead to the tragic downfall of both Hamlet and Laertes themselves. Claudius's insidious genius lies in turning the grief of others into weapons for his own survival. Hamlet's unexpected return to Denmark from his aborted voyage to England, after ingeniously thwarting Claudius's plot to have him executed, dramatically shifts the narrative's momentum towards its inevitable confrontation. His escape, facilitated by pirates, transforms him from a passive, contemplated victim into an active participant in his own destiny. It brings him face to face with the altered landscape of Elsinore, where new tragedies and vengeful plots await his arrival. The poignant graveyard scene where Hamlet confronts the skull of Yorick, the former court jester, and muses on the universality of death and the transient nature of human existence, acts as a profound philosophical interlude before the final bloody climax. This meditative moment, steeped in the contemplation of mortality, allows Hamlet a brief, chilling clarity. It prepares both him and the audience for the inevitable end, reminding us that all paths lead to the same dust. The final, meticulously orchestrated duel between Hamlet and Laertes, a treacherous trap laid by Claudius with a poisoned rapier and a poisoned drink, culminates in a cataclysm of death that engulfs almost all the principal characters. This violent climax, a direct result of Claudius's desperate manipulations and the characters' entangled fates, delivers a brutal yet cathartic conclusion to the tragedy. It fulfills the cycle of revenge and brings a grim justice to the corrupted court of Elsinore. The tragic deaths of Queen Gertrude, Laertes, Claudius, and finally Hamlet himself represent the devastating conclusion of the play's cycle of vengeance and corruption. It leaves the Danish court decimated and devoid of its ruling figures. This bloody outcome, a direct result of the intertwined plots and counterplots, ultimately cleanses Elsinore of its moral decay, albeit at an immense and heartbreaking cost. It paves the way for a new, albeit fragile, order. In the immediate aftermath of this profound loss, Fortinbras, the Prince of Norway, arrives to claim the now empty Danish throne, bringing a sense of external order to the ravaged kingdom, largely due to Hamlet's dying wish. His ascension, a direct consequence of the power vacuum created by the royal family's demise, symbolizes a restoration of stability and pragmatic leadership. It marks the end of the play's internal turmoil and the beginning of a new, more decisive era for Denmark. Hamlet's protracted indecision and philosophical brooding, a central characteristic throughout the play, gave rise to the enduring psychological concept known as Hamlet syndrome. This is a modern term for analysis paralysis or choice paralysis. This phenomenon, where excessive contemplation and overthinking prevent decisive action, directly stems from Hamlet's struggle It solidifies his character as a timeless archetype for those grappling with the overwhelming complexities of choice in an uncertain world. The profound influence of Hamlet on the English language is immeasurable. Shakespeare's innovative use of vocabulary, phrasing, and rhetorical devices significantly expanded the expressive possibilities of the English tongue. Countless words, idioms, and iconic lines, such as to be or not to be in words, originated or were popularized in the play. They directly enriched the language and became integral parts of everyday speech and literary discourse. Hamlet stands universally recognized as one of the supreme achievements of Western literature. It is a literary triumph that fundamentally redefined the scope of human characterization and narrative depth, profoundly impacting subsequent literary traditions. This enduring critical acclaim stems from its unparalleled exploration of complex human psychology, ethical dilemmas, and existential questions. It sets a benchmark for literary ambition and sophistication that continues to inspire and challenge authors globally. The play's groundbreaking depiction of intricate human psychology, encompassing themes of indecision, grief, revenge, and moral ambiguity, offered a level of interiority previously unseen in drama. It profoundly influenced the trajectory of modern psychological thought and literary characterization. This deep dive into the human psyche, exposing the multifaceted nature of human emotion and motivation, laid intellectual groundwork for later fields like psychoanalysis. It demonstrated that literature could be a powerful tool for understanding the inner self. The concept of Hamlet syndrome, rooted in the prince's famous indecisiveness and philosophical struggle, has permeated modern culture. It has become a widely recognized metaphor for contemporary analysis paralysis or choice overload. This cultural assimilation demonstrates the enduring relevance of Hamlet's character as a mirror to modern anxieties. It allows audiences across centuries to connect with his internal conflict and provides a shared vocabulary for describing a common human experience. Hamlet's immortal soliloquy, "To be or not to be, that is the question," has become one of literature's most quoted and universally resonant phrases. It transcends its original dramatic context to embody the fundamental existential inquiry facing humanity. This powerful utterance serves as a perennial philosophical touchstone, provoking reflection on life, death, and the very essence of human existence. It ensures the play's enduring impact on philosophical discourse and popular consciousness across all cultures. The innovative dramatic structure of Hamlet, particularly its use of the play within a play, the mousetrap, and its profound exploration of a character's interiority through extensive soliloquies, revolutionized theatrical conventions. It influenced the development of dramatic arts for centuries to come. These artistic choices, by breaking traditional narrative boundaries and delving into the psychological landscape of its characters, provided playwrights with new tools for storytelling. They pushed the boundaries of what theater could achieve in terms of emotional and intellectual engagement. Shakespeare's prolific linguistic inventiveness within Hamlet and his other works profoundly enriched the English language. He introduced and popularized countless words, phrases, and idiomatic expressions that continue to be used in contemporary English. Lines like words, and there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy, not only define character but have become deeply embedded in the linguistic fabric. This showcases the play's lasting impact on the evolution and expressiveness of English. The character of Hamlet, with his complex blend of intellect, melancholy, indecision, and moral struggle, has become an enduring cultural icon. He is a universal archetype that continues to be reinterpreted and reimagined across various artistic mediums and academic disciplines. From literature and film to psychology and philosophy, Hamlet embodies a nexus of profound human experiences. He serves as a symbolic touchstone for discussions on existential angst, justice, and the human condition, making him a perpetually relevant figure in global culture. Hamlet has consistently served as a fertile ground for profound philosophical and ethical debate. stimulating centuries of scholarly inquiry into questions of revenge, justice, morality, and the meaning of life itself. The play's refusal to offer easy answers and its embrace of moral ambiguity continue to challenge audiences and academics alike. It fosters ongoing discussions and diverse interpretations that underscore its enduring intellectual vitality and its capacity to provoke deep, critical thought. The play's complex protagonist, Hamlet, a figure wrestling with the burdens of indecision, revenge, and existential doubt, gave birth to the archetypal Hamlet-like character in subsequent literature. It influenced countless authors in their creation of introspective, troubled, and often melancholic heroes. This enduring character type, characterized by intellectual depth and a struggle with decisive action, demonstrates Hamlet's pervasive impact on literary character development. It solidifies its place as a foundational text in the lineage of psychologically complex protagonists. The subversive nature of Hamlet, challenging the conventions of the revenge tragedy by infusing it with unparalleled philosophical depth and psychological realism, fundamentally advanced the art of dramaturgy. It inspired future playwrights to push the boundaries of genre and form. Shakespeare transformed a popular, often sensationalist genre into a vehicle for profound intellectual and emotional exploration, proving that tragedy could be both thrilling and deeply resonant. He thereby left an indelible mark on the evolution of theatrical storytelling. Hamlet's enduring relevance as a subject of continuous reinterpretation and adaptation across global stages and screens underscores its timeless appeal. It highlights its capacity to speak to the anxieties and concerns of every new generation. From classical theatrical productions to modern film adaptations and even popular culture references, the play's core themes of justice, identity, and the struggle against corruption remain perpetually fresh and compelling. This ensures its prominent place in the global artistic canon. The profound psychological depth and philosophical inquiries embedded in Hamlet, particularly its explorations of existential dread and the nature of human suffering, significantly influenced the development of existentialist philosophy in the 19th and 20th centuries. Thinkers like Soren Kierkegaard and Jean-Paul Sartre found in Hamlet's soliloquies and his agonizing quest for meaning a profound reflection of their own philosophical concerns about individual freedom, responsibility, and the absurdity of existence. The intellectual atmosphere of 16th and 17th century London, a burgeoning metropolis where dramatic arts thrived alongside a rapidly evolving intellectual landscape, provided the crucial context for Shakespeare's creation of Hamlet. The city, alive with diverse populations and vibrant cultural exchanges, was a fertile ground for theatrical innovation. It drew playwrights, actors, and audiences into a dynamic creative ecosystem that celebrated both entertainment and profound philosophical inquiry. The enduring spirit of inquiry and the embrace of paradox in Hamlet, qualities that made Dr. Samuel Johnson nervous and Leo Tolstoy indignant, exemplify Shakespeare's radical self-reliance and his profound indifference to simplistic moralizing. This intellectual freedom, allowing the play to resonate across cultures and genders, showcases Shakespeare's largeness of nature, as Emerson noted. It extends beyond conventional boundaries and continually challenges our perceptions of truth and meaning. Ultimately, Hamlet remains a towering monument in the landscape of human storytelling. It is a testament to the enduring power of tragedy to illuminate the deepest corners of the human heart and mind. It is not merely a play but a profound conversation that spans centuries, inviting each new audience to grapple with its eternal questions and to find echoes of their own struggles within its timeless narrative. The enduring legacy of William Shakespeare as the unparalleled master of human drama is nowhere more powerfully articulated than in the haunting, unforgettable echoes of the Prince of Denmark's indelible plea, "Remember me."